All right, so we're going to do this in small chunks. I'm going to try and just do a few slides at a time to go over some main points in regard to the topic we're discussing. So the topic we're discussing now is the endocrine system. Here's an overview. You're going to be needing to learn how to define the word hormone as well as endocrine system itself. You're going to need to name the organs of the endocrine system and contrast the endocrine glands with the exocrine glands. Um, so let's get started. We're just going to cover a few things very quickly, see how it goes. There are four main modes of communication for the endocrine system. And basically, it's the way they communicate from one cell to the other. The first is through gap junctions. These are pores in the membranes that allow molecules to go through or move through from cell to cell. These signaling molecules can be nutrients, they can be electrolytes, they can be any number of things, but they're little tiny holes that are a tunnel from one cell to another. The second way is through neurotransmitters. These are specifically from neurons to travel across a synapse to the second cell. You covered the nervous system already, so you're going to be somewhat more familiar with neurotransmitters. It is the chemicals or the molecules that travel across that synaptic cleft that are released by the nerve to affect the cell that it's targeting. The third way are paracrines. These are substances that are secreted into tissues themselves or the tissue fluids to just affect the local cells in that area. So it's you have a cell here and it's kind of like a skunk setting off the scent glands where it releases it out into the environment and it affects those local cells. And then the third or the fourth one is hormones. And these are those chemical messengers that travel through our bloodstream to affect tissues or other tissues and organs. The the endocrine system consists of the glands, the tissues, and the cells that actually secrete those hormones that travel through our blood system. Endocrinology is the study of this system and the diagnosis and treatment of the disorders associated with this system. Endocrine glands are the organs that are the sources of the hormones, and the hormones are those chemical messengers that are transported by the bloodstream to signal certain physiological responses from one cell to another or in tissues and organs. One of the things with hormones is it doesn't have to be right next door to the endocrine gland that's releasing it. You can, for instance, we have an endocrine gland, the pituitary gland in our brain that affects receptors all over our body. All right, so these hormones secreted, and the endocrine system consists of two different types of tissue. You've got let's move on, your endocrine glands and your exocrine glands. There's two different types that are releasing these hormones. Let's compare them. That's what this slide does. You've got your exocrine glands, they have ducts. So exocrine, think of exiting a door. A doorway is that tunnel that it goes through. They have ducts that carry the secretion to an epithelial surface of its target organ. They also have extracellular effects, specifically in food digestion. Endocrine glands don't have the ducts. These are like the atrium that opens up. These glands actually have really dense groups of capillaries within them that allows for an easy uptake or an easy way to pick up these hormones and carry them into the bloodstream. There are no internal secretions within these glands. And then finally, we've got the liver. The liver is in a class of its own. It releases hormones, but it also releases bile into ducts and it releases albumin blood clotting factors, which are not hormones. So the liver is kind of in a group all on its own. Let's move on to this last section of comparing the nervous system to the endocrine system. If we look at both of these systems, they are for internal communication within our body, but they vary in how quickly they respond to a stimuli. The nervous system reacts quickly. It is its immediate response, but it also stops just as quickly. An endocrine gland is kind of like that ship on the ocean where it reacts much more slowly. It takes seconds or in some cases days or years, and the effects continue far longer than the quick stop of the nervous system. So I look at the nervous system kind of like a NASCAR race. It's fast reactions, it's a fast start, but it's a fast stop as well. And I look at the endocrine system kind of like the shipping lanes, where you have these huge cargo ships that take miles and miles to get started, but then also take miles and miles to stop. As far as long-term stimuli, again, the nervous system response is fast, so it declines quickly. Whereas the endocrine response is a slow adapting response, so it tends to last. Once again, the difference between a NASCAR and a large shipping container ship. And then the area of effect, the nervous system is very targeted. So the nervous system works through nerve pathways, which we've learned this already, and it goes to a specific organ or a specific site where it is stimulating its intended response. The endocrine system is a much more general, widespread effect on the body. So continuing the comparison, there are certain places where the nervous system and the endocrine system overlap. There are certain chemicals that function both as hormones and as neurotransmitters, such as norepinephrine and dopamine. And then they can also have similar effects on the cells. Both norepinephrine and glucagon cause glycogen hydrolysis in the liver, for example. Neurotransmitters can affect glands, and hormones can affect neurons. There is an interplay between the nervous system and the endocrine system. Then as well, they share some characteristics with both systems. Some of the things that they do are the same. For example, there are neuron-like cells that will secrete oxytocin within the blood or into the blood. There is definitely an overplay. And that overplay allows for the body to function even if there is an injury or a deficit in one area or the other. There are also some target cells that possess enzymes that can convert hormones for its use. So there are some organs that hold enzymes that when the hormone comes around, it will actually convert that hormone so it can be utilized more effectively within that target organ or cell. This was a quick, brief overview of the first part of this chapter. These are the kinds of bite-sized chunks that I'm going to try and break this semester down into. This does not exempt you from being responsible for the information and being responsible for the reading. I'm just going to try and highlight some specific things that I want to draw your attention to.